Hello, I'm Alex. I'm here to teach you about making your own web page using HTML code. So to begin with, I want you guys to be able to download your Visual Studio. So make sure this is free and it should be able to download on Windows or Mac. And I'll have a link for downloading this software in the description. So basically when you have to make computer science or programs with that kind of stuff, you need a special program for it. So you can't just use Word or a text file. So this is Visual Studio, it's free, and this is what it's going to look like when you first start up. So obviously you guys are new to this, so we're just going to create a new file. And then you're just going to put text editor, because when we save this, we can actually choose to make it into an HTML file. So that's going to allow you to open it up with different Google Chrome or that sort of thing so that you can actually see what your web page looks like in the browser. So to begin with, I want to show you how to start a HTML program. So if you're not familiar with computer science programs, most of them have to start up with certain phrases in order to show that it's HTML or C++, that sort of thing. So for this, we're going to start with doc type. So first you have to have your alligator, I don't know, maybe your arrow pointing to the left, right? And then you're going to do exclamation point, doc type. So that's all in caps, DOCTYPE, and then HTML, not in caps, and then end it with that other alligator arrow thing pointing to the right. So that's going to be the basics of HTML is really right here. So all the HTML programs that we're going to run are going to use these alligator or arrows to show what is happening. So another thing that we have to put in under this is another HTML. Once again, this is just in between these two alligators or arrows. And as you can see, I just hit enter to go to the next line. And on the left, it has 1, 2. And as I press enter more and more, we're going to get more lines. And that's just how Visual Studio works. So I pressed enter again. And now I'm going to start our body. So this is really basic HTML stuff. The body is similar to a paragraph. So when I don't know if you've seen this in any of your writing classes or English classes, but you have a body of text and then you have paragraphs within that body of text. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. So body is going to be where we're going to put everything. So I'm just going to open my body and close it. So in order to close your tag, because these are called tags, the things that are in those alligators, and that's going to be a backslash or forward slash, either way, just figure it out on your computer, and that's going to end our tag there. So we know that our body is going to go in between here, but we also have to close out our program, otherwise it won't run. So I'm also going to close out my HTML tag here. So then we can work within our HTML program and put whatever we want there. We just have to make sure that we have the beginning tag and the end tag. And it's the same thing with the body. We need our beginning body tag and end body tag. And then we put everything else in between there. So just think of it as a circle. So we have a circle like a hula hoop maybe, and if you stand inside that hula hoop, you're inside the hula hoop. But as you can see, the body tag is inside the bigger HTML tag. So the HTML tag would be like a really, really big hula hoop that you're inside, but you're also inside a smaller hula hoop. Not a great metaphor, but hopefully you get the idea. This is our body, and then our HTML tag, which is going to be our whole program, is surrounding everything that's in the program. So let's look inside our body tag. So first, we're just going to do a simple heading tag. So this is opening the heading tab, and then I'm going to close it, just as I did before, where I have those little arrows, and then inside it I have a slash, and then the same tag. So H1 and H1, and to close it, I have to put that slash there. Okay, so now we're going to put a heading in. So H1 is going to determine the size of your heading. So you can go from H1 to H6, and that changes how big your heading is. So this is going to be the title of your web page. So once I'm done with this, I'll show you what it's going to actually look like on your web page, because all this code, you're kind of like, I don't know what this is going to actually look like. So I'll show you how to open it up in Google Chrome or some other web browser so that you can see what the code actually looks like on a web page. So I'm just going to write heading here. Obviously, you guys can do whatever you want to show off your big title. And then we're going to continue on with a paragraph. So paragraphs are going to be similar to that essay example I gave you, where you have your body of text, which is everything that's on the page. Your paragraph is just going to be one paragraph. So you have your heading at the very top, and then below it, we're going to start our paragraph. So this could be anything that you want to type about, but I'm just showing you how to do this first. So once again, I want to open my paragraph with that P tag. So hopefully you guys can see this P tag right here. And then I'm going to close it once again with that same slash. So this is closing my paragraph, and then I can write as much as I want inside the paragraph. But here I'm just writing paragraph to give you guys an example. So you can write a full paragraph if you want, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how to do spacing, because me hitting enter and writing something else isn't going to actually enter in our paragraph when we're on our web page. So I'll show you that when I open it here. So just as a reminder to how this is broken up before I actually show you what this does on your web page, remember we have to have our HTML doc type at the very top, but then we also have to have the HTML tag and the closing tag around everything that we're writing. So even if it's not your body or you put your heading somewhere else, it's still got to be inside that HTML tag. Otherwise, it's not going to be on your web page. All right. And then, of course, we have our body tag. This is just going to be so that we can organize and make sure that all of our text is in one spot. So remember, we got our opening body tag, and then we have our closing. So that's where that slash comes in. And then I have my heading. So I have my opening heading, and then my closing heading at the end of my word. And then you can put your word or whatever you want your title to be in there, and I'll show you what that actually looks like on your web page. And then here's our paragraph, and I'm going to show you how pressing enter on your program is not going to get you enter on your web page. So we'll look at that a little bit more as well. So now I'm going to show you how to open up this Visual Studio program in a web page. But first we gotta save it. So for you guys, you can probably go up to File at the top left, but I'm just going to hit Command S, or if you're using Windows, Control S, that saves. So I just hit that, and then this comes up and it asks me where do I want to save it. So I don't really care what you guys name this. I'm just going to name it HTML, and I'm going to save it on my desktop. And then I'm going to, very important, this is the most important part, your format. This might look a little bit different if you guys are using Windows, but you really got to make sure that your format is in HTML. So I'm going to go down here. I see HTML. I put that in there, and then now that's going to give me my correct file type. So now that this is an HTML file and not just a text editor, you can see that all of my tags are highlighted because it knows that I'm using HTML. So this will probably work on Visual Studio, but if you do have some other program you want to use to write your HTML program, this might not happen. So since we're using HTML, it understands that I have these tags, and if you want to play around with that, you can see that if I press certain things, it'll show me my tag here. And then my body tag is within my HTML tag. My heading tab is within my body and HTML tag. So it's kind of showing that a little bit to you as well. So now that we're saved, let's look at what the web page actually looks like. Okay, one more thing that I forgot to mention. So when you save as an HTML format, sometimes it'll have a .asp, which is not the correct file extension or end to your file that you want. So in order to fix that, I'm going to hit Save As on the same file. And right here used to be something that looked like this. You want to delete that and write HTML. So that's going to be what you always want your file extension to be. So that's going to be your name of your file. So you can name it pets or whatever you want to name it. but it has to end in .html. So make sure that works, and then you'll be able to open it. I'm going to replace this. I'm going to open it in Google Chrome or really whatever browser you want. Okay, so I'm in Google Chrome currently, and I'm going to go up to the top and hit File, and then I'm going to say Open File. So there's different ways that you can do this, definitely depending on if you have Mac or if you have Windows. This is how I'm doing it on my Mac, and then I just clicked my HTML program. Remember that it ends in .html, and we're going to see what it looks like in the web browser. So this is it. It's not much, right? And I'll show you a little bit more how to spice this up, obviously, but this is the basics. So remember that my program originally had, I had to hit enter in my program, and I wanted this something to be below my paragraph. But like I said, you need to do something special with your tags in order to get this to work. So just hitting enter on your paragraph won't hit enter on your actual web page. So as we can see here, my title is really big. It's at the top. And as I said before, you can change your tag, your H1 tag. If you change that to H1 through 6, so maybe I say H3, that will change the size of my heading. And then our paragraph is just a default text size, and I'll give you some more tags that will make it either bigger, smaller, different colors, that sort of thing. So this is just the basic web page, how to start typing things into your web page and how to open it in a web browser. All right, and then now we're going to learn a little bit more about the unique things that you can use to make your web page look different. Okay, so now we're going to look at a few other things having to do with headings and paragraphs. So these are the different heading sizes that I was telling you about. So this is what we used before, our H1. So just as a reminder, when you close your tag, it can either be on the same line or it doesn't have to actually be on the same line. So as you can see, our body tag, we have all of our stuff within our body, but they're not on the same line. But this H1 tag, I just kept on line 5. I didn't feel like moving the end tag anywhere else. So now we can see that we have heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as you can see, I have H1, H2, H3, 4, 5, and 6. So then these are going to be our different sizes, and I'll show you in the web browser what that actually looks like. And then just another thing I wanted to show you is our paragraph. So with my paragraph, similar to my body, I just put them on separate lines because it's a little bit easier to see. You guys can do whatever you want. I just like to see, oh, I know all of my paragraph is going to be in between this P and this P. So this is going to show you how to break up those lines. So if you remember, I hit enter on my program, but when I actually went to the web browser, it doesn't show up. So you have to put a special tag to make it break, make the line break, or make you have an enter. So here you can see I have line 1, and then I have this tag BR. So BR is line break, and that's going to shift my line 2 under my line 1 once I show it to you in the web browser. And you do not need an end tag for break. So break is one of the few tags in HTML that you don't need to have like a /BR to end it. So you can just put that in between any 2 words or 2 sentences to make them go under each other. So let's take a look at that in the web page. So just a reminder, this is what the text looks like. So you guys can type this up at home and see what it looks like as well. So I'm going to go back up here to File, Open File, and then I'm just going to grab my HTML program. You guys can name it whatever you want. You just gotta make sure it says .html. So our heading 1 is going to be our largest heading. And then once you get down to heading 6, you can see that it gets really, really small. So just as a reminder, I will pull up my program as well. So you can see on the left here, this is what my web page looks like. Everything is shifted to the left, and I'll show you how to center things in a little bit as well. But yeah, our headings, H6 is the smallest, you can tell that. So you can decide what size of heading you want. And then our paragraph, as you can see, my line 1, 2, and 3 are under each other because of these line breaks. So this is what this will look like for you guys. And that's the basics of heading and paragraphs. And I think from here, I'll look more into links as well. And then we'll get into what different text colors and sizes you can do within your paragraph. All right, so now a few other things I want to show you. I'm going to show you how to make a link on your website. So if you want your website to link to another website, you can do that. If you would like an image on your website, which most people do, then we can do that as well. And then if you want a button instead of a link, that can still link you to another website. So here I'm going to start off, we're all within our body tab, and what I've highlighted here is going to be my link. So our tag is a little bit different this time. So instead of just having one word or a few letters in our first tag, we're going to have a space href equal, and then you put in quotation marks what your website is. So you guys all know how to copy links. So you just have to make sure that you have href equal sign, and then within quotation marks, you put that copied link in there. And then don't forget to close it out with that alligator, because this is still a tag, so it's just a really long tag. So this is our opening tag right here that I've highlighted. So that a space href equal quotation marks, whatever website you want. Obviously you can see I put YouTube in there. And then what you want that link to show up as on your page. So before we close out this tag, you're going to want to show the link off on your page. So I just showed it as link. So once we look at the web page, you'll see that there's a link underlined and it's blue to show you, hey, if you click on me, I'll take you somewhere else. Or you can name it anything else and say, click on me or something like that. And then to close out this tag, instead of actually typing all this again, we're just going to type that A and that slash. So to make sure, this is kind of the more difficult part of programming. It can be really frustrating if you don't have someone to answer your questions. But my first beginning, when you're a beginning programmer for HTML especially, I would say look character by character. So if you're typing in what I have here and you find that it's not working, just go one character at a time. So say, look at your code and say, all right, we got that arrow sign here, and then we have A, and then we have space, and then href, and then maybe you'll say, oh, equal sign, I forgot my equal sign. So that's why you have to go really slowly with your programming when you first start. Otherwise, you miss a lot of the simple things, because unlike English, where you know how to spell words, in programming, you might not know how that you need that equal sign there, or you need those quotation marks. So really pay attention so that you don't get something wrong in your program. Because programming can be really frustrating, but once you get a hang of it, you're going to go like a breeze. So now we're going to talk about images. Everyone wants an image in their website to make it look interesting. So I'm going to show you a tag. This is just a image tag. This is another tag that you do not need to close it. So there's no slash image that you need to put in here, but this is the whole tag. So I have a picture of corn on my desktop, and I would like to say, when it comes to images, wherever you save your program, so my HTML program right now is saved on my desktop, and so is my corn JPEG. So whatever your image is, you need to make sure that file for your image is in the same folder or the same spot as your program. So my HTML file, once again, is on my desktop, and so is my JPEG. So you gotta make sure those are in the same spot, otherwise your file won't be able to find the image and source it. So this is our tag. We begin once again with that little arrow, and then we start with img space src, so that's going to be our source, equal to, and then in quotation marks, you put the name of your image. So my image is literally named corn.jpg. So make sure you're not just writing a name, because there's usually a file extension on the end of your name. So I couldn't just put in corn here because it doesn't know that's an image. I have to put corn.jpg. So all that is in quotation marks. Then we're going to put another space and put alt equal to corn. So that's going to say, if you hover your mouse over the image, it'll say corn. So it's just whatever you want to name it, instead of just this weird .jpg thing. And then our width and height are obviously going to be really important. If you know what size your JPEG is or your image, then you probably want to keep it that size. Otherwise, it's going to stretch it or make it look really small or very pixelated, that sort of thing. So try to get the width and height to be the same thing as your original image. So once again, it really helps out since Visual Studio with the HTML tag can color these differently because it's easier to tell what you're typing out. So your image or IMG is going to be the darker blue, and then our SRC, alt, width, and height are going to be that lighter blue. So all of these you need to spell out the word, put the equal sign, and then in quotation marks, put either the name or put how many pixels width you want to be. So this is in pixel size. It depends, you guys will have to play around with it, I would say, to figure out what the correct height and width is for your specific image. But that's going to be very important, so make sure you have those in there. And then please, please, please do not forget to close it. Not actually close it, right, because we're not using a closing tag, but to close the tag itself with that arrow. Okay, so now we have images and HTML links down. We're going to look at buttons. So buttons are just another visual way for you to have a link. So there's different button tags, but I wanted to give you guys a tag that works as a link because I don't know why else you would use a button on your web page. So this is the same tag that we're looking at as our link. Like literally look up here, you still got the href, and then you're closing with that /a. The only difference is within this first tag here, you can see that I've added another part. So instead of just ending at the end of my link and putting my arrow right there, I continued by writing class equal and then in quotations button. So that button class is telling me that instead of just putting the link name where this click me just looks like it's a link, it's going to make a button symbol around it. All right, so now that we have the basics of what our program is running with HTML, let's see what it actually looks like. So once again, I'm on Chrome. You guys can probably use whatever window you want when it comes to a browser, a web browser. But if you do have Chrome, you can just use that. All right, so I'm going to pull this up as a reminder. So this is what our code looks like. This is what it's putting out. So my H1 heading just tells you, hey, here's a link. And then here's a link. If I clicked on it, you can see I can click on it. And I think, yes, in the bottom left of my window, you can see that it says www.youtube.com. So that's showing that this link will take you to youtube.com. And that's exactly what I wanted it to do. And then remember, the reason that says link here is because I put the word link in between my closing tag and my opening tag for my link. And then our image, once again, we have our heading right here. And then the tag for the image was my corn JPEG. Yes, you can see this looks like corn. I believe it's really squished together because it looks really pixelated. So I would have to play around with my width and height of my image to make it look better. Same thing will probably happen with you guys. You'll have to keep on opening it up in the web browser after you change it. And just a reminder, if you are changing something, so like if I wanted to change the width here to 200, please don't forget to hit Control or Command S, or find a way to save it on here by going to File, Save. Because if you don't do that, you're going to keep on opening up the same file that didn't have any of your changes on it. So now if I go here and I go Open File, and then I go to my HTML file again, you can see that this looks way different. It's starting to look a little bit better, and my width is looking better. And the reason that this happened is because I actually saved my file. If I had not saved it and just changed it, it would say, oh, you're just giving me the same file you had before. All right, and then our button class, it's not working right now, but there are some different things that you can do to make buttons if you really, really want to. I would say that they're kind of useless. So if the class function for some reason isn't working for you, which it's not working for me, I would just say skip the buttons and stick to your normal links. Okay, so now we're looking at background color, text color, and text size. So I'm going to show you my body. So in order to have a background color, you need to make your full body that background color. So now I have, instead of just my normal body tag, I still have a closing body tag, but my body tag does not just end with body. I'm going to hit space and type in style equal to, And then within all this within quotation marks, I'm going to put background dash color, and then that's going to be your colon. So if you hold shift and then you hit next to the right of the L on your little laptop, and then we're going to put in a color. So I just put a hexadecimal color in. You guys can do several different things. So let me type this out. So now I'm hitting my colon, and you can see that all these colors are right here. You guys can do it this way if you would like to find a color and just scroll down, say, oh, I like cyan. So I put that cyan color in there. And then don't forget to put your semicolon, which is just don't hold shift next when you hit the colon, just press the colon button, and then it'll give you a semicolon. And then end it with a quotation mark. So real quick, if you want to have a bigger selection of colors, instead of actually writing the name of the color, you can type in the hexadecimal or RGB code. So I'm going to show you that real quick. So this is a really nice website. It's htmlcolorcodes.com. So this literally allows you to change what colors you're looking at. So if I want to look more at the greens, I can pick literally whatever green I want. And then there's a code here, either a hex code or an RGB code. I just write the hex code because it's smaller. So I'm going to write the hex code for this green, and instead of having to write actual words, I'm going to start with my hashtag or pound symbol or number symbol, and do 1C7F12. And then you can see that gives me the same color as this website gives me. So that's how you can really choose what color you want. So that's our background color. So now we're going to look at how to change our text color. It's very similar. So our body is where we put our background color, but if you want to change your text color, you can either put in your heading tag, so H1, or your paragraph tag. So it's the same kind of idea. I don't close my H1 tag with the little arrow. I keep it open, I hit space, I type style, equal, and then in quotation marks, I put my color, colon, and then as I told you above, you can either type in, so I typed in blue, just get the color blue, and then don't forget your ending quotation mark, and then also your little arrow. So I have a closed heading right here, and then I'm going to actually close the tag over here so that this right here, where it says text color, should be in blue. So I did the exact same thing with my P, except this time around, I just chose what color I wanted. So sometimes this will pop up. I would not rely on that. I just rely on using the website and typing in the hex code. But yeah, you can choose whatever word you want to put there. And then once again, this should be Alice blue, this color right here. So that's our text color. Now, if you want to play around with text size, you can also do the same thing with your style, equal, font size, and then make sure this is all in quotation marks. And really do not forget this semicolon right here. You can see I forgot my semicolon right there. So don't forget these semicolons before you end your quotation mark. So for font size, you do font dash size, colon. This dash is a minus sign. You'll find it maybe next to your number 0 on your keyboard. And then you would write 50%. So this is going to make my font size for my heading 50% smaller. So you can see I did the exact same thing on my paragraph. I did not close it. And instead I wrote style equal to quotation marks, font size, and then 400%. So that's going to make my paragraph size, text size way bigger. And you'll see that in a second. So that should make my big paragraph super, super big. So let's take a look at what that looks like. And then I'm going to my web browser, once again, file, open file. And then I have this more or less saved. And you can see, let's look at our code again. I didn't save it before I changed this color. So this background color is different, but still in hex code. So you can see my background color, completely different color. And then my heading style, you can see text color heading is blue, just like I want it to be. And then this Alice blue is actually not blue, it looks like a white. So that's going to make my color white. And then you can see my heading, which I made 50% smaller, is super, super tiny. So very tiny heading right here for text size. and then I did 400% and made a super big paragraph text size. So once again, you guys can play with that. Don't forget your breaks, that sort of thing. Another interesting thing, very quickly, I want to show you is if you want to break up different sections, you can use this tag called HR. So that's going to put a little line in between these sections so that I can tell what's what. So let me open this again because I just Control S or Command S to get my saving of my HTML file. And then you can see now we're green again, and I have these lines here. So that's what I'm using to break up. So you can see I put my HR. This is similar to my BR tag. You do not need to have an end tag. And my HR is in between background color paragraph and my colored text. So you can see that my HR, where it is in between, and just puts a line so that you can break up your website. So that's about it for text color size. You guys can play around with that. I think next we're going to look at how to center things and how to move different texts and images around as well. Okay, so talking about text aligning, so aligning your text at the center or at some other area in your website. So my heading, I'm having my centered heading aligned at the center. So this is going to be the same thing that we did before, where I have my heading tag. Inside my heading tag, I have style. And don't forget our 2 arrows to make sure that everything is in there. So I have style equal to quotation mark, text dash align, colon, and then center, and then semicolon, quotation mark, and then I end it with that arrow. So that's our first part of the tag. And then I wrote whatever I want my heading to be. You guys can write whatever you want, title, who cares. End it with our H1 tag. And then I did exactly the same thing with my paragraph, except instead of having a center, I have it at the right. So normally it aligns at the left of your web page if you don't do anything with it. So instead I have my text align, and I'm going to push my paragraph all the way to the right of my web page. And then real quick, if you want to do several of these things at once, because I just showed you how to make different colored text and also bigger text, say that I want my text color to be both big and a different color and in the center. So in this case, you just have one style, and then you say style equal to quotation mark, and then your normal color, colon, blue, semicolon. So that's really important. You have to have that semicolon there. And then maybe just hit space and then do text dash align, colon, center, and then semicolon. Very important that you have that semicolon. And then it's also very important once you're done adding all these things together that you have that quotation mark at the end. So instead of just having text align in my style, I can have color, text align, and font size. So let's take a look at what that looks like. And I opened up this earlier. You can see that I have my centered heading, and then I'm in the way, but you can see that my paragraph is all the way at the right of my web page. And I still have those HRs in there from earlier that put those lines to break up things. And then our heading is a little bit bigger, and it is blue, and it's in the center. So that's going to be what we're doing for moving our headings and our paragraphs all around our web page. Okay, so now we're going to look at some different text styles. So that's if you're going to bold a text or if you're going to highlight it, that sort of thing. So it's really simple. I'm just making sure that this is all aligned in the center. So our heading is in the center, and so are our paragraphs. So for my first paragraph, I made it bold. I just wrote one word, and then you put this tag that is just 2 of those arrows in the center, you put B. And then our end tag is the same thing, but with the /B. So that's only going to make this word bold. If I put this /B at the end, it would make all of my words bold, but I just want this part of my paragraph bold. So here we have something highlighted. So this is another paragraph. And so I said, highlight this, but then I put mark. And then I put my tag mark and ended my tag mark around this. So instead of highlighting this whole paragraph, it just highlights this one word, which is this. And then there's something called strike through. So that's going to put a line through one of your words. So say that you want it to look like you made a mistake or something. So I'm going to say not, and then this. So I'm going to strike through this word by using the S tag. So there are 2 S tags around this. So that's our strike through. And using quotation marks in HTML is a little bit weird. So remember when we pressed enter and we saw that nothing happened. It doesn't actually enter onto your HTML page because you have to use the BR or the break tag. So now we know it's the same thing with quotation marks because the HTML program thinks that you're using quotation marks for something else, like our text align center. So you can't actually use quotation marks and put as text inside your HTML tag without using a tag itself. So I have my Q tag, which is once again just those arrows with the Q in the center. And then don't forget to close it with the /Q. So I should have quotation marks around the word quotations. And then if I were to put spaces in between this, it would put spaces in between the quotation marks as well. So let's take a look at what all of this looks like. So just a reminder as to what our text program is. So here I have my text style, and that's my heading. And then we go on to the next paragraph. This is where our bold comes in. So you can see our bold is a little bit different from the others because it's bold. So our text is bold because of that B tag. So now we're looking at the mark tag, and you can see that only this is highlighted because I put my mark and my end mark around this. So that tag is only highlighting this right here. Same thing with my strike through. So my strike through is that line that goes through the word saying, nope, don't look at this. And that's going to be only around the word this and not the word not. Sorry for making it so complicated. And then our quotation marks, you can see my Q and my end Q act as the beginning and end quotation marks. Because if I just put the quotation marks in there, the HTML would think, oh, you're not trying to put quotation marks in your text on your web page. You're trying to make text align center or something like that. So this is what we can do to navigate around some of the HTML issues with trying to change sizes and change colors, certain things with your text style. So hopefully you guys can make at least the text look good with whatever you want to end up making. So now I'm going to move on to how to put things in certain areas on your web page. So you can either use the breaks to break in between. So I could highlight this way down the page by doing a ton of breaks. Or I could try to put my images in certain places on my web page. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you my web page is in my background right here, and then the actual code for it is right here. So to begin with, I have my lists heading at the very top, aligned at the center. So now I want to show you some different lists. So in a website, if you want to list maybe some facts about something, or maybe just list some animal types or pets or something like that that you own, you can choose between different kinds of lists. So before our first break, as you remember, the HR puts that line to break up my web page a little bit better. So before that first line, you can see that my list is bullet points. So to make a bullet pointed list, you need to make sure that around all of your list elements, you have the tag UL. So that stands for unordered list. So obviously bullet points, there's no order to it. It's not like 1, 2, 3. They're just bullet points. So you have to make sure you have unordered list or UL tag, open and close. And then in between it, you put all of your list elements. So your list element itself also needs to be inside a tag. So my first bullet point has a LI tag and then an end LI tag. So that's where our slash comes in. So my number 1 is going to be my first bullet point by having the list around it. And then same with number 2, you have to make sure you do the list tags as well, and number 3, so that they are on their own individual bullets. So that's our unordered list. If we go under my little line, you can see that I do an ordered list. So that's OL. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3. So my list actually has numbers on it. And same kind of concept, each list element, so my number 1, which is on my number 1 list, has to have the LI tag around it. So open, close LI tag for number 1, same with number 2 and 3, so that they're each on their own numbers. And then if you want to have, it's called a nested list. So this is an unordered list, but I'm pretty sure it will work with an ordered list as well. So for my unordered list, I have number 1, which is just normal. It's just on a normal bullet. But then my number 2, I have some subcategories. So maybe if you said, oh, I'm listing all the pets I have, and you have 2 dogs, you could say dogs, and then you could say my name of dog number 1 and dog number 2, so that you could have a subcategory for your list. So in order to do that, we still have our unordered list around here. So open tag, end tag. So our open tag is before number 1, and our end tag is after number 3 for our unordered list. And then you have the normal list tags that go around number 1. But then for number 2, I open my list tag, but I do not close it. I do not close that list tag until after these subcategories. So I open my list, I've got number 2, do not close it, and then I'm going to open an unordered list. So I'm going to make another unordered list, and I'm going to close it around all my subcategories. For the subcategories, you can just do normal, you do the list tag, and then you put something in the middle, and then you end the list tag, and then you do the same thing with your other subcategory. But all this needs to be in between those unordered list tags. So once you're done with your subcategories, close up that list tag so that number 2 is all shook out and it's all good. And then number 3, you can just make normal again as well. So this is going to be how to make different lists. The nested lists are a little bit complex, but it's definitely worth it if you want to order your information in your website a little bit better. I will say if you want to align these in the center, it's a little bit difficult, because if you use the text align center, it will align the text to the center, but it will not align the unordered list. So like the bullet points would stay to the left side of the screen, and then the text would go in the middle, which is obviously not what you want to do when you make a list. Okay, so now we're going to look at using CSS in our HTML program. So CSS is another program language. So HTML is a program language, and so is CSS. CSS is different and independent of HTML, so you can use it without using HTML. But since we're using HTML, I want to show you how to use CSS within your HTML program. So CSS has a bunch of really cool things that HTML cannot do. So some of the things I'm going to show you right now are background images, and then also rounded corner boxes. So rounded corner boxes are super important because you can move them around your web page, and you can put text inside of them. So I'm going to show you really quickly what our web page looks like based on the different background image and rounded corners that we did using CSS. So my background image is my corn. I have it at the correct size this time, so that definitely looks pretty good. And then my rounded corner box is at the left, but you can move it around the screen using some of the things I had taught you previously, or you can look it up as well. So here is the code as to how to do that. So first, this hashtag here is just a note. So if you want to write a note within your code to remind yourself, oh, this part of my code has to do with my background image, then you can use hashtag background image, but you can't put any spaces. So first, we have to make sure that we have this thing called head. So our head is separate from my body. So you can see my body is way down here, but my head is before my body. It's very similar though. We're going to start with our open tag for head, and then our close tag down here, and it's going to be surrounding everything that has to do with CSS. So inside of our head, we need to also make sure we have our style. So our style open tag is here, and our end tag is here. So that style tag is within your head tag. So first, starting with our background image, this is when we're starting to get into our CSS stuff. So our style CSS is going to begin with our body. So our body is, instead of using tags, since we're using a completely different computer language, we're just going to type body space and then use this closing and opening kind of parenthesis. It's different, but basically it should be in your next to your P on your keyboard, and you have to hold shift to hit it. So that's a different kind of bracket that you should be able to find on your keyboard. So we have our body, and then we have these two brackets that are very similar to tags, that they open at the top and then they close at the bottom to make sure that everything is inside. So first off, I want my background image, so I'm just going to say background : URL, and then parenthesis corn.jpg parenthesis, and then semicolon. So that semicolon is at the end of each of our lines of code for CSS. Once again, make sure your JPEG is in the same place that you store your HTML file. So like I said before, my HTML file is on my desktop and my JPEG is also on my desktop. So they're able to show up and understand where the other one is so that they can actually put it in your HTML file. So this background size, super important. It's going to be the size of your image. This is what fits my screen. So this 1500 px pixel is going to be the width. So I have it at 1500 width and then 900 height. So you might have to play around with that as well. This is our width, this is our height. So remember, background size, colon, width, px, height, px, and then our semicolon. And then we don't want our background to repeat unless you do. So I said background dash repeat, colon, no dash repeat, semicolon. So that's saying, no, I don't want my image to repeat all around my website. I just want to have one really big image. And then this padding, it's a little bit complicated to understand, but I would just say put in your padding, colon, 15px, and semicolon. It's just helpful in a certain aspect of making sure that you can actually have the background image in the background. So this is another note that I put for our corners one. This one you do actually have to put in there so that we are able to tell where we want to grab our rounded corners CSS code. So down here, my body, so remember my body tags are outside of my head tag. So this is going to be my paragraph, and you need to make sure to have this hashtag rcorners1, or you can name it something else, but just make sure that you have it right above your CSS code because we are going to use it later. As you can see, our paragraph open tag is not closed until over here. So you can see that I have ID equal, and then I use my quotation marks to say rcorners1. So I'm naming this little set of code, and I need to ID it later to make sure that my paragraph actually goes inside my rcorners box. So the rcorners code for CSS, you have to make sure you have your borders radius. So that's going to be how big is your rounded corner, and you can make it any size you want. Just make sure you have border dash radius, and then don't forget that px, because that's going to be how many pixels we have across. Background, so that's going to be our color. Once again, you can change it to whatever you want. I used the hexadecimal code, but you guys can use whichever color system you want. Padding, once again, just make sure that it's not super close to the edge of the screen and that sort of thing. So make sure you just put that in there. And then width and height, that's going to be our size. So make sure you have that as well. And that's going to be it for our rounded corners box. I highly suggest using them because it's a really good color-coded way to break up your website, especially if you are using a background image, because sometimes background images are super make the website super difficult to read. So obviously if you have white text on a gray background, it will be super hard to read the text. But if you have a gray background and then a black rounded corners that has white text in it, you can read it immediately. So as you can see with my web page, if I just put my black text over this cornfield, you might have difficulty seeing the text or even finding it, because look, it's a huge cornfield. It's like, oh, I gotta sift through the cornfield to find my text about rounded corners. So that's why I actually put the little box around it. So that'll be useful for you to differentiate, like have a really cool background image, but also be able to read your text. Okay, so really quickly, I want to talk to you a little bit about web page aesthetics. So I know I haven't taught you everything there is to know about HTML and CSS, but hopefully you are able to look this stuff up on your own and start to realize, hey, I can actually code using HTML, because I can't really show you everything there is to know about this coding. So first things first, what does a good web page look like? So let's start off with our color. So our color choices for our website are really important. So whether you use background color or background images, you really gotta pay attention to that color. So here are just a few examples. You can see my hex code is here at the right. So if you see any of these color palettes or this group of colors that you're like, oh, I really love those colors, I'd like to use it in my website, definitely check these out. You can look at that website I showed previously to look at what the actual hex is, or you can just look here and then put it into maybe your text color or your rounded corner box color or your background color. Any of those things, you can change your color. So here's some more color options. This is a little bit cooler, a little bit more fun too. And then this is like a dry, arid kind of color collection. So maybe if you're doing a website on hiking, that would be really cool. This is kind of interesting too. It's a little bit sci-fi-ish. This is another really good color palette. I chose these ones specifically because I really like them. And then here is our last color palette choice. So all of these different color palettes, you guys can probably look up online. So if you look up color palettes for websites, you can probably see a lot of articles that say, oh, here are some really cool color palettes that you guys can use. So that just makes your website a little bit less neon or like not very good color choices, but also allows you to add a lot more colors. So originally you might say, oh, I just want a black background and white text. But looking at these, you'll say, well, maybe if I have red text on a black background, but also white text, that might be cool. So speaking of text, so once again, that's going to be your writing. You want to make sure that your paragraphs are interesting to look at, so that someone who goes on your webpage doesn't say, oh my goodness, there's like 700 words and it's like a full, really boring paragraph. Like, look at this. It's like, it's fine. It's very informative, but it's really boring and long and people aren't going to read it. But that's where our lists come in. So remember when I taught you about unordered lists and ordered lists? So that's going to make it way more interesting. So you don't have to have a bullet have only one word. It can be a full description. It can be several lines if you want, but separating it with that unordered list make it way more interesting. So you can have your heading and then have your unordered list under it so that people can say, oh, I want to learn about what this heading is about. Let me look at these ordered lists and see what it looks like. And you can still have your paragraphs, but you might not want to make them very long, because I'm sure you guys have seen an essay that someone gives you and you're like, oh, I don't want to read this essay. It's got so many paragraphs. But if you saw someone hand you a grocery list, you'd be like, oh, you're getting milk today? That's crazy. So lists are way easier to read on websites and way more interesting. So I didn't talk too much about layout, but I did tell you that rounded corners and centering your headings are very important. So here are some interesting things with layout. Rule of thirds is an art speak for saying, hey, it looks really cool if you have your layout in thirds. So 1/3 of this layout is blue, 1/3 of it is where I would probably put my heading or title, and then the other third is probably where I would put my paragraphs, and it's orange. So it's same thing here, but this one is vertical. So you really want to decide, hey, do I want to have a horizontal where my words go from left to right, or do I want to make a rounded corners box and then make my words stick inside that box and then have a more vertical layout? So these are just some ideas of how you want to differentiate either your images or your text boxes. And it's really interesting to block it off. So even if before you start a web page, you can start by sketching out your web page, and that really helps you think, I think my web page looks better if I have all these rounded corner boxes than if I just had text, 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 like paragraph, paragraph, paragraph. So that's just a thought for making a better layout once you get more past the basics. So make sure that you're very consistent. Make sure you have the same font and spacing, same size, but if you have a different size, make sure it makes sense. So if you're having a heading and a paragraph, that makes sense that they're different sizes. But if your paragraph and each paragraph after it get larger and larger, unless you have a reason for it, that doesn't really make sense. And then if you have any borders, make sure that they are the same. So instead of using black borders with white borders, maybe consider using the same color or the same size. And then those colors, you probably want to make sense. So having a bright neon yellow with a white is kind of difficult because it's hard to see the white on the yellow, or vice versa. And then you want to make sure your layout is consistent. So don't have vertical layout and then have it be horizontal as well. And then watch out for white space. So this is really big with especially your websites. If you start to make your website and you're like, I don't have any more thoughts, like I don't have anything else I want to write on my website, consider adding an image with a description on it so that you can fill in that white space and still make it look really, really interesting. So that's about it for you guys. If you want, I can answer any of your questions, just put it in the comments. And then also, if you guys really want it, I can make another video. And I would say that if you guys are stumped on what you want to make your website out of, you can think about maybe making a website about your favorite animal, making a website about something that you're really interested in. Like if you're interested in space, do some research on astronomy and like put some pictures of planets and stuff in your web page. If you are interested in certain like phenomena, you can put links to YouTube videos, or you could make them about a made-up commercial. So say that you want to make something about McDonald's, you could make a whole website that's advertising McDonald's. There's a ton of different websites you can do, and hopefully you can make them look cool now that I've showed you all these different HTML methods. So you can go back in the video if you want to double check the code, since I'm not able to actually post the code in the comments or in the description of the video. So just go back in the video and pause it so that you can actually see what the code is I'm showing you, so that you can copy it down for later. All right, so thank you very much.